Hey, welcome back to another episode of Epi Disposable. And I know it has been a long time, but I am back, hopefully, for a couple of times in the future. But yeah, so welcome. My name is Effie, and I'll be your MC for today's podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about one of my writings that I wrote a couple of months ago. It's about me theorizing on how there's like this praise out there, and people say that we shouldn't take things personally in workplaces. And in the writing that I wrote in a blog titled Professional or Personal, maybe it could be both, I argued on, should we take things personally in a professional setting? Can we have an optimal professional working environment without connecting personally with each other? So, once again, this is not going to be a scientific research or a self-help guide for you, but these are just my thoughts recently that pop into my head for a while, and I've been thinking about it and sort of trying to find a conclusion about the thoughts that I have, because people always tell me, like, before I got into my first ever official job, that I should not take things personally in workplaces and keep it professional. But how can we actually take things professional and personal? Where are the boundaries between that? How can we be so sure that we shouldn't take things personally in workplaces? So this is one of my philosophical thoughts that I will be telling you about. You may call me idealistic or taking things too complicated, but hey, if you're still here listening to me, then I'm grabbing your attention, right? So here we go. You might contradict, accept, or question these thoughts yourself, but or maybe you might ignore them, but feel free to do anything you want from these thoughts, okay? So here are my thoughts. Before we dive into professional and personal, let's dive into the term personal first, philosophically. What is personal? Personal means a person's character, a person's identity, a person's values. Everything that you believe in, are opposed to, correlate with, and value would make you the person that you are. That's what makes the key personal branding happens, right? When you post something about yourself that corresponds with your personal interests. Some love posting about makeup, some show their excitement in writing, and some share their lifestyle or travels. And these aspects are what makes your brand personal, because everything that you post has the same thing in common, which is you, despite the different themes, editing styles, or whether it would go viral on the internet, whether you would get a bunch of likes or not. But all those things are a part of you. Whether you want to follow the algorithm or merely post it for fun, it is all a part of you, and that's what makes it personal branding. It's supposed to be personal, something within, something authentic from yourself. At least that's what I believe in. So, because of that kind of philosophical thoughts about personal, let's talk about persona. So the word persona originally came from Latin, meaning the aspects of someone's character that is presented to or perceived by others, or in psychoanalysis, the other or assumed aspect of character. Through my lens, persona means each human could show their different persona or faces or masses according to their environmental setting. We show different sides of us when we are at work, school, meetings, home, and public spaces when we are surrounded by strangers. It is always an interesting question for me to ask myself if I was being myself in those multiple settings. Was I supposed to be as funny at work as I was when I was hanging out with all my friends? Whether you hate to admit it, all humans wear masks all the time. We fake all the time, in a way, in multiple ways. The question worth considering is whether those fake moments were too much that we are at times forget who we truly are. Have you ever felt the least heavy mask you wear around certain people? When was that? Who were you with? What type of character made you worry the least and laugh the most? What type of conversation made you able to breathe freely and not worry about the type of air you're breathing yourself into? We all make assumptions about everyone, whether you try to deny it or not, or try to learn not to make assumptions about other people. We all make assumptions. It might be from the first 3 seconds of our eye contact or years of relationships we have with the other person. We make assumptions, and at times when we meet those people again, we remember them based on our assumptions, which correlates with our past meetings with them. No matter how much you have spilled your guts to someone or whether they have talked about everything that makes them who they are, we as human beings can never know exactly how someone truly is. You can try and analyze humans with academic research or experiments, but let's face it, humans are completely different from one another, and it's impossible to understand how a human works differently from another. Perhaps you can try to imagine a person's persona through their body language or tone of voice, but in the end, those assumptions are surface level. Despite all of the characteristics that you might envision based on the things you could perceive, how a person become who they are through psychoanalysis is an impossible thing to do. So we have dived into personal and persona philosophically, and those are just my view, and leads to the next question, which is professional, or you might call it professionalism. Professional means relating to or belonging to a profession. Therefore, people say that to pursue professional, you have to be professional in a working setting. Don't take things personally. How can we not take things personally when the noble pursuit we have is a part of our personal life? Whether you love your job or merely do it to sustain your life, it's inevitable to say that your work is a part of your life. Alright, you might say, well, you need to separate the two. That's why work life and personal life should not be combined. Here are my arguments to contradict to that opinion, okay? So, the character, your character, your ambitions, and your values would shape the way you work. Give an example. When a programmer applied for a programming job, you would examine their CV and experience. You would then go to the interview phase and see how they are and when they answered your question. The way they answered it, whether they know or not, they have to give their professional facets, right? Their answers would reflect their personal life, right? Their life stories, the way they handle things, the way they collaborate with other people, they are all have the same thing in common. They're all a part of that person's personal life. That person's persona. This means the way we work professionally, whether you want it to be separated or not, would be a personal persona we show to other people when we work. After the interview session, you would then consider whether the person you have interviewed would fit the job that they have applied for. Who would be making those conclusions? Another human, HR for example. Another person with their personal judgment, with their own personal stories. So yeah, the working experience would shape these judgments, but in the end, all of these judgments come from another human being with their history complications. Thus, someone's professional persona in that workplace could determine someone else's working opportunities. So the reason why I wrote that is because I am questioning whether we can separate our professional and personal life. Would the don't take things personally statement actually apply effectively in our working environment? I think it's a complicated answer to give. I think those two intertwine with each other. No matter how hard we try to differentiate and show our masses around certain occurrences and people in our lives, despite our working and living phases, no matter how hard you try to fake it, it's all valid as it's all a part of you. As I have argued before, all of those masses are a part of your diverse personas. So what's exactly the point I'm trying to make here? Why the difference between personal and professional? My point is, there are multiple points in our life, multiple perspectives to look at things, and I honestly dislike the fact that society and the world think we need to be so stigmatized in our lives to the point where we feel we need to fake ourselves to fit into a criteria where we feel the least like ourselves. And you might pick a different point, like, no way, we need to know who we are and separate ourselves when it's necessary, and your arguments are just excuses to take things personally when you shouldn't. But what I'm trying to explain is that those diverse perspectives might give you the realization of my previous statement, saying that there are multiple points. You have yours and I have mine, right? I did not say that we're not showing different sides of us every day. We do that almost consciously and mostly subconsciously every day when we meet people and when we meet strangers. We do separate ourselves when we're in different settings. And I might argue about the phrase, don't fake yourself in front of people. I'm not going to be naive and say I've never faked myself, but I don't think what we do most of the time is faking. I think we just show different, superficial yet real pieces of us to different people. There are people you meet to talk about sports, and there are people you hang out with to talk about deep life, wrenching experiences you have. Does that mean you're faking? I don't think so. Not really. You just show different layers depending on the people you interact with. And in my opinion, when you know someone personally, at least on the top layers, you would somehow know their potential and have a clearer picture of the job description that would suit them best. So technically, if you know someone personally, you would also know the objective, effective way for them to work professionally at workplaces. So that's why they call it people management, right? Because how can you manage your human resources when you have the slightest clue on why they work the way they work and why they have the values they hold? It's interesting to understand that we need to separate our colleagues from our friends, but to have a more sustainable and effective collaboration, we as humans need to interact as humans to build the connections necessary in building relationships within the workplace. But again, in the first place, I might just be idealistic and probably need a lot of materials to back this thoughts up. But for now, I think these are just my opinions, and these are just my thoughts about how we can effectively enhance the workplaces, the working environment in between people by understanding people's better and not distinguishing. Of course, we have to differentiate between personal and professional, but where is the silver lining? Like, how can we know for sure that it is a strict policy about professional, but then again, how we become as professional as we are, coming from our values, personal values, our stories, our histories, our bruises, our fun times, the way that we grew up with, the upbringing. We are who we are because of our personal life, and how we work also shaped by our personal life. That's what makes us human. So I think it's just kind of like a philosophical thoughts for this podcast. It's not a poetic one. I'm so sorry. But I wrote this on my blog a couple months ago, and I've been wanting to make this as a podcast, but I haven't got the chance to do so. But yeah, I am open to different perspectives about this, and it is your rights to have your perspectives, but these are just my thoughts that should be considered when you are trying to understand your colleagues or whether it's your friends. And I think it depends on each individual to differentiate the boundaries and the faces that you want to show, different facets of yourself accordingly to the person that you talk to, and the person that you interact with, and the person that you work with, and definitely the person that you want to hang out with most of the time. So I think that's it from me in this episode. Thank you very much if you're still here. I apologize if it's kind of confusing, but thank you for listening, and I hope it could give you something in return. And yeah, this is Epi signing off. Thank you for listening to Epi Disposable, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.